In this video, we're going to install the K&N air intake system in the Jeep Grand Cherokee. Now, before we get started, I will say that there is a little bit of controversy about going with a air intake system similar to the K&N, but I just want to kind of show or illustrate the differences here. This is the standard air intake system that comes with the Jeep Grand Cherokee. This is the 5.7 liter V8 engine. Right here is the actual throttle body. This is the air intake into the engine right here. So what happens is the engine is actually sucking air in, and it applies pressure to this big air box here, right? And this extends all the way down this chamber into the air filter. So what happens is pressure is built up inside the air box in order for it to pull air this way, right? Because it's got to fill this or suck this whole mass in. That right there does sort of start to slow down the airflow into the engine. It's not a direct path. It actually is a pressurized chamber here as it pulls air from this entire box and essentially then pulls it in from the air filter, because this is the only air inlet then from the air filter. Well, this air filter is completely sealed. Now there's a K&N air filter in here, but this chamber is completely sealed, and the only way this gets air is through this little opening here. In addition to this being the only air inlet, you got the hood. So air has to come up inside this, in this little hole, down this body, into this box, up into this filter, past this filter area, and then up this chamber, filling and pressurizing this box to then go into the engine. And that whole process does kind of reduce the amount of how quickly the air can be picked up from the filter and into the engine. So although there is a little bit of controversy on whether or not you get a horsepower increase, it does actually smooth out the air path. All right, so what we're going to end up with is just a big filter here that's completely open. So it'll be able to suck air in 360 degrees around the filter. It will have a shielding, so it protects it a little bit from the engine heat, because you want the coolest air possible to go into the engine. So it's going to have a little shielding there, and then just a direct pipe that comes back this way and into the throttle body. So this is the first upgrade I'm going to do, and regardless of the horsepower, I just really like the look. So I'm going to put that K&N in. It has a chrome tube, and we'll be ready to go. I find it interesting that they've added this dyno chart in with the air kit just to illustrate the difference in horsepower and torque values from a dyno. So this is a 2011 stock Grand Cherokee 5.7 liter. So the one I have is a 2013. It's essentially the same thing. And it looks like they've got a gain here of about 15 horsepower and roughly about the same for torque. So that's not bad. I'm glad they actually included this, so we got some numbers. For this installation, we're going to need a pair of pliers, a 4mm Allen wrench, a 9/16 wrench, a flathead screwdriver, a socket wrench with an extension, a 10mm and an 8mm socket. One of the first steps is disconnecting the negative terminal in your battery, and if you've never done that, well, it's a little hard to find. So let me show you where it's at. The Jeep battery is actually located under the passenger seat. You'll see this little panel right here. So we need to lift that up to access the battery. But what makes it easier is if you pull that seat all the way forward. Now we can access the battery from underneath the seat a lot better. So it's got two clips. You need to really pull up on that. You can see the clips right there. And I've already changed this battery out once, but this right here is my negative terminal. And this is a 10mm end here. So let's grab the wrench and we'll get that off. Okay, I just found this old plastic bag. Again, all I'm going to do is put this on the end. I'm just trying to prevent the car from grounding. The positive is still connected. So we'll wrap this around the end, and then it should be able to rest free. Like that. Now it should not ground out the car. Okay. Now we're going to need to loosen up this bolt and undo this clamp. If I didn't mention, this one here is an 8mm. There we go. And we'll just take that all the way out. Like that. Okay. Set that aside safely, and then we'll loosen this clamp. you have to disconnect the air sensor, and it's this thing right here. Be careful that you don't break it. It is fragile. It'll, like everything else on the Jeep, it has a little push clip. So you just push in on it and it should slide right out like that. We'll just tuck that away. And then this here, be very careful of that because we're going to reuse this in the K&N. And this right here is the breakable part. So be really careful. I can just pull it off to the side too, like that. Just set that out of the way. And then your airbox has got a couple of clips. Undo that one, undo this one, and then this whole thing should, oops, get that out of my way, should just dislocate from, oh, let's get that up, there we go, and pull that off like that. There we go. Set that down out of the way. And this is what we're looking at. So we got our throttle body right here. Sorry, got our throttle body right there. It's also nice to see what kind it is. You know, future upgrades might go with the bigger one. And then our K&N air filter. This one's still in really good shape. I get it cleaned occasionally. All right, so we'll set that aside. And really the next thing is just taking this off, which you've seen me do before, but we'll do it again here. Take this out and then dislocate this box. Okay, just like my other video where I show you how to access the light bulbs here to change, we've got this little grommet underneath this seam. So you just put your finger, you can kind of feel where the grommet is by sliding it across. It's right here. And you just want to pinch it and kind of pull that right out of there. Be somewhat careful, but it is in there pretty tight. Looks like I'm pulling it loose. I did. So, all right, well, I'll get that out first. And we've got this little grommet area right here that's gonna have to come undone. And this is a two-hand job. So I need to press on that and that'll dislocate it. There's nothing else holding it in. It's just now I have to maneuver this out in kind of a pattern like that to get it to slide out of there, because it's going to come out of this. This is part of it. It's going to slide out of that and up. All right, so we need to hold this out and then remove that piece. Okay, so after a little persuasion, it's able to come free. And come on, there we go. All right, so that's out. Okay, here's a tip. I'm an idiot. This part here, once you undid that fastener, you could have just left it in there because we're gonna have to pull this all out in one big box, or we need to pull the whole thing out anyway. So don't mess with this piece like I just did. Just disconnect this from it, push it aside, and then we're just gonna grab this and see these little grommets. You're just gonna pull up on this box and dislodge it. We're gonna need these grommets, so don't discard anything. And K&N does recommend you keep your factory boxes too, and I also would recommend that. Just wash them out real good, throw them in the K&N box when you're done with your install, and then throw it in some storage. Anyway, let's get this out and then we can get everything put together. All right, first thing is I've got this tube that's coming from the power steering fluid right here, coming from there down. It's got this little lashing here held onto the airbox. So it's not marked in the instructions. So I'm just taking a look at other things. It's not marked in the instructions, but we're going to need to take that off because it is actually connected to the airbox. So I'm just broke that off with a pair of pliers and pulled it right out of place. And that way that's no longer attached to the airbox. Now everything should be completely disconnected from it. Make sure. And we'll pull up the tabs so they don't get in the way. And we'll just see if we can lift straight up on it. You can see them starting to come out. That's good. There we go. So that whole box comes out. So we're left with a big gaping hole. All right, so the next step is to take the adapter here and put it into the heat shield. So this is the way it's going to go, like that. All right, so we'll stick through the heat shield and we'll screw it in with the hardware kit that it came with. Washer, and then the compression lock washer in through the 4mm Allen wrench screw there. We're just going to put them both in here and tighten them down real good. You could use a little bit of blue Loctite on there if you want, but I think with a lock washer it should be just fine. Okay, those are all put in and everything's nice and snug. Now, for these two areas here, we got to pull the grommets off of that thing and then put them in here, and it's going to be mounted on this one and this black one here. So it's going to be kind of at a weird slopey kind of angle. So let's get those grommets off and get them installed. Okay, to get these out, it's just, I mean, they're real easy. You should be able just to kind of pull gently and they'll just pop right out. These have been successfully installed. Now in the kit came with some weather stripping like this, and we're going to take that and wrap that right around the edge here. And that's going to help not scratch up the top here, but also give us a little bit more of a air seal when you close the hood down on top of it. So let's get that weather stripping installed. Okay, the gasket's installed, and we'll just get this hump hose installed there. Okay, so with that in place, we'll just tighten down this front one here and leave this one open, or not tight, because we're going to put the tube in. Okay, we'll get this set in here, and again, it's going to go like that, right there, and it'd be easier to put it on this one first and then line up the second one there and push it through. So we get that done. Make sure you provide clearance for your air washer fluid. Okay, the next thing is to install the gigantic air filter here onto that with the already included clamp. So just to keep it clean, I'm actually just going to flip in the bottom here. Okay, so the next part would be to install this piece to the throttle body with the enclosed clamp. Let's get this on there. Okay, get that screwed down. This is the last step. And if you remember, I said be careful about that temperature sensor, so we're going to install it right here after I get all this shrink wrap or this bubble wrap off. And then we can go ahead and get this installed into the throttle body and then into that. Okay, so I went ahead and tightened that down and put the other clamp on just so it'll be ready for when I install this part. So this is the next step. And if you recall, I said be careful about that temperature sensor. We're going to end up installing it right here. So we need to make sure that we safely take that out. So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, I just wanted to point out real quick how to get this out of here. It's going to turn counterclockwise, but you see it has like a little tab that holds it into place. It's like a little locking mechanism. So what we have to do is we have to lift up on this little tab just a little bit so it can clear that, and then we can turn it counterclockwise. So again, two-hand job here because I don't want to break anything, but we'll see if we can. I'll just get a screwdriver, just gently lift up on that and then turn it counterclockwise to get out of there. So just like that, I lifted it up and just turned it a little bit, so now we can just safely dislodge that, I think. There we go. And just pull that straight out. Okay, you can tell which hole it goes into because it'll look like that. It'd be a locking assembly for this. Let's get this installed. And it should be fairly straightforward. We're just going to try to line that up. Try to line that up, you see the end there. Press it all the way down, and we'll just turn it clockwise. There we go. You can feel it lock into place. So that's what it'll look like. Okay, I did have it. It's plastic, just it's hard to find. So we'll just screw that in. And it does have a wrench adapter here, but you know, it's plastic, so you're probably going to want to do that by hand and then tighten it down. So let's see if I can get that started. I'm just kind of trying to line it up and take a good look at it. It looks like it's going to run into that hose here. Not sure. You can't have that hose move down any because then it's going to start rubbing that belt. We don't want that for sure. So I'm going to go ahead and fit this and double check that end, and if everything lines up okay, then we can get everything connected. You can see what I'm saying, right? I mean, it just bounces right in there. So it's almost like we really got to screw that in 100% of the way. So let me grab a wrench and try to safely do that. Okay, so with that all done, I went in and grabbed the 8mm wrench and socket and tightened all these down. So they're all nice and snug. It's not going anywhere. Now let's get the hose installed. K&N did include a new section of hose, so we'll get that installed here first, and then we'll tuck it up under here. We have it connected here. I got that pressed in about as far as I could. Tucked up underneath the new intake, around to that. And they gave us the exact length that we would need for this to have a comfortable curve in it without any kinks. It comes with 2 extension cables. One is yellow and one is red someplace. There it is, red. So make sure you use the right extension cable, and you can tell it's color coded. This one's yellow, so I'll be using the yellow cable. So the yellow will connect here, and then the other end, the extension end, will connect to that. So we'll get this all installed. Alright, I connected it here. You just simply push in there, and then I went behind this cable and then just easily pressed it in there. So we're all done. Remove the plastic. Again, it's not close, so that's good. Okay, this is what it looks like with the cover back on. Not too shabby. We got some good clearance here, and of course that's not bumping, so should be good to go. Thanks a lot. So we just completed the install of the K&N Performance Air Intake System, and I think it turned out pretty well. Looks nice. Oh, and now's a good time to maybe take a wet towel and clean up those areas that we often ignore. Anyway, turned out really well. I'm pleased with it. I'm going to take it out for a spin and just hook the battery back up, and let's go see what it's like. Until next time, see ya.